I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Today, we're going to be talking with my esteemed friend and leader, servant of the community, leader of the Minnesota Senate, Senator Bobby Joe Champion. And we're talking first about an important event that he does annually, Music for the Holidays. But beyond that, what's on his mind in the state of our community, the development priorities that he's had as a leader in the Minnesota Senate, what he's seeing in trends around the country, and wherever the spirit leads in this conversation. Before I bring Senator Champion in, I want to invite you and remind you to support the Conversation with Al McFarlane. How do you do that? Go to YouTube, Insight News MN, YouTube, Insight News MN, and just hit subscribe. We're trying to move our subscription to 1,000. We have crossed the halfway mark. We're north of 500. We want to get to 1,000 and do that as soon as we can. You can help. Go to YouTube, Insight News MN, subscribe, and then tell everybody you know, like and share. Let's get this party going. You know, Senator Champion, I've known for a long time, was around when he launched his career in politics to be the state representative for this neighborhood, my neighborhood, North Minneapolis, his neighborhood. We both live here, and watched and supported his transition to the Senate and was elated, like everybody else who knows him, when he was elected the president of the Minnesota Senate last term. And like everybody else who knows him and people who don't know him, but see him work, watch him work, all excited about his ability to deliver money, goods, policy that supports our community. And what he and his colleagues have been able to do this past session, was unprecedented in terms of the financial impact with legacy organizations, with businesses, with health and community serving organizations. And so it's always great to connect with him in a way that, number one, explains both the vision, the results, the outcomes, and the intentions going forward. Our objective is to make sure that you, listeners and viewers and readers of Inside News, are equipped to understand the difficulty, the challenges, but also the joy of success that all are represented in his fearless and tireless work on behalf of our community and on behalf of the state of Minnesota. So with that, Senator Bobby Joe Champion, brother, so good to see you. Though I can't see you, you're going to be joining me audio, but it's good to have you in the program, man. How you doing?
You know what? First of all, let me just say thank you for those kind words, and thank you for having me on. And my apologies of not being able to join you by video because I am actually coming from Nashville, Tennessee. I was there for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, and I must say that I was honored. I was honored to receive an award last night, and one of the individuals honored. And what they were doing, in addition to their big conference, was honoring a number of states where or individuals who are black leading in their respective bodies, you know. And so one of the things I learned, which kind of ties right into what we're talking about, is that I think I'm only the second one or two black presidents or Senate presidents. We have a number of individuals who are first-time leaders when you think in terms of the respective houses across the state. But it's myself and a wonderful African-American woman whose name is Andrea Stewart Cousins, because she has a hyphenated last name, from New York, by the way. And so we had a chance to kind of talk about our successes and what we've been working really hard on here in the state of Minnesota. And believe it or not, you know, a number of people have been looking at us and saying, you know, you all did some extraordinary work this year, whether it's from the PRO Act to, you know, catalytic converters to tax reform to Juneteenth as a state holiday to the Crown Act, and then making historic investments, as you started talking about, in communities that have been traditionally disinvested in, right?
Right.
You know, and so so whether that's money for small businesses and educational opportunities, whether it's for money for folks with disabilities, whether it's you name it, and also think about our future. So whether we're talking about bio-industrial manufacturing or semiconductors, better known as chips, because we have to make sure that we continue to make America strategically positioned globally. So we've done some extraordinary things, and what I am proud of is the Promise Act and our bill, because North Minneapolis, and even though I do represent North Minneapolis, the North Loop, downtown, and a portion of Northeast, those communities, especially North Minneapolis, got real investments, right? Whether it's in bonding, whether it's in education, you name it. We wanted to make sure that when we say one Minnesota, that it includes us and not just sort of includes us. Like, it's really intentional. So those are the things that I'm proud of.
Well, I'm going to come back and walk you through those items you've mentioned, asking you to unpack some of them. And I almost saw you there for a second. You're working your camera. I know that you're in your car, but if you get the camera to work, come on in with it. But, you know, I wanted to start off, though, by sharing with our viewers and listeners, and I'll be writing this for Monday's edition of Insight News, about your important Music for the Holidays event. And Cooper, pull up that graphic on that so we can tell people what's going on here. So you're doing Music for the Holidays. It's going to be Thursday, December 21st at Orchestra Hall. And it's a sort of a magical, massive event because it includes a dinner from 5 to 7:30, or 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., and then a show from 7:30 to 9 p.m. That's a big undertaking. It's going to be down at Orchestra Hall, premier venue, performing Darnell Davis and the Remnant, None Above, Sarah Renner, Tanya Hughes Kendrick, Nachito Herrera, and Daniel Felton. Wow. Mariah Miller, Cortland Pickens, and known MPLS, known Minneapolis, the Hearst Family Experience, the great Fred Still, Giancarlos and Gabriel Velez, more, I'm going to name them, Cornecia Garman, Elisa Switzer, Wynn Starks, Monique Blakely, Imfellas, Cameron Wright, medley with Pastor Betty Howell, Lady Bernice Gregory, wow, what a wonderful singer, and the inimitable Shirley Marie Graham, and the First Lady Tessa Johnson. What a group of people. Plus, you got dance performance coming from Le Jolie Petit, the Hollywood studio of dance. Man, what a day. What a day. So why? And what's the value proposition that you're bringing with this marvelous program, Senator? You know, we might have lost the feed, and if we did, that's okay. He'll be coming back with us. Let me talk more about it. Bring that graphic up again. Yeah. So I think this is like has been an annual event, but it did not happen, I think, in the past 2 years because of the COVID. I think last year there was a weather related, like a phenomenal storm forecast or bitter cold that caused last year's cancellation. I think the previous years it might have been involved with COVID-19. So I think everybody is anticipating the return of this event. Let me take a minute to shout out some of the sponsors to make that bigger again. Cooper, I can see that better. You've got companies like 3M, US Bank, Thrivent. Can you make the picture bigger for me, Cooper? Because I can't read the small type. Well, Bobby Joe, you're there.
Well, yes, I'm here.
Shout out some of your supporters and sponsors. Give them credit.
Well, you know, absolutely. Music for the Holidays, as you know, is a wonderful opportunity for us to come together across the state of Minnesota, not just for one section of our community. It's for us as community, and for us to be able to gather around and create wonderful memories around holiday music, right? And we have recording artists who are all coming in to perform and provide a gift to us, which is the gift of which is their gift. And so we do have V3 and 3M and McFarlane Media and Camel J, and just a cross section of different people, whether it's ESAR or whether it's also U.S. Bank, just to name a few, those who said, you know what, we want to participate in this wonderful community coming together, because we do not want it to be cost prohibitive for individuals to be able to come to Orchestra Hall with their families, no matter if they have 3 people in their family, 2 people in their family, or 6 people in their family. But also, before you enjoy that great music that's going to be done by great and wonderful and well-known artists that's on the stage, there's a sit-down dinner for up to 1,000 people at the Minneapolis Hilton, right?
Oh.
Where families can come and sit down. And we're really strategic also, Al, about reaching out to the places like Turning Point or Sharing and Caring Hands or Tubman, so that they can have an opportunity to be there as well. And then that's where some of our great churches step up when it comes to transportation, making sure there are vans or there's transportation available for those folks who may be in some residential place or space, for them to also feel like they are, and not just feel like, but understand they are a part of our community. So we want to make sure that folks, no matter if you're in Edina or Medina, or if you're in Wayzata, or if you're in South Minneapolis or North Minneapolis, we want you to have access to tickets. So tickets become available November 30th, and it's first come, first served basis, as it is when it comes to seating in the facilities as well.
And it's at musicfortheholidays.com. So write that down and be ready to ask for your tickets come November 30th. I wanted to take a little extra time, as you just did. I think it's so important to give credit to the corporate donors and sponsors that support you in this work of creating a holiday experience that is valuable for our community. And so kudos to 3M Company. You mentioned V3 Sports. That's a story in itself. At some point in time, let's talk about what's coming online, being brought to our community by V3 Sports. Obviously, U.S. Bank, always there, always present. Then we have the Minneapolis Foundation, and I can't read the one, Nissan or Milan? Metallics?
Masabi. Yeah, Masabi Metallics. And then you also have on there, DoorDash, right? And Fredrickson and Byron, for an example. And Camel J is also a media partner. Thrivent. We can't forget Ken Charles and others. But many hands makes the load light. So everyone is given a little something in order to make sure that we can have this experience. So I don't know if you can see the other.
I see them better now. I want to shout them out. DoorDash, kudos to Excel Energy, to Progress Residential. I think that's what it says. Tony Santa Foundation. Santa Foundation, great organization serving families over here in St. Paul. Fair Vote Minnesota, kudos to them. The Sherman and Associates builders in our community. The Stair Step Foundation, obviously one of the backbone organizations in our community. The great work over at Summit Academy. You mentioned KMOJ and Insight News. And then, of course, the wonderful host venue at the Minnesota Orchestra. And you mentioned the Hilton across the street.
Absolutely.
That's a big undertaking, Talk about some of the artists. Go ahead. Well,
some of the artists, yes, it's a big undertaking, but you know what? It's a labor of love, right? And it's not just me, but it's all of us coming together, right, in order to make this work. So some of the artists you have, Known Minneapolis, which is Cortland Pickens and Known, which is a youth choir that's been doing amazing work, bringing young people together, keeping them out of trouble, encouraging them. Those who are going off to college, they have a number of college folks who are coming back and for the holidays, so they're going to join us. We have Win Starks. He's from North Minneapolis, but you saw him on America's Got Talent, right? And he talked about his twin who unfortunately passed, but he dedicated his performance and where he was in he was the top contender there. You have Fred Steele from the well-known Still family, you know, who's going to be with us. You also have Sarah Renner, who's from North Minneapolis and who's a great recording artist who travels around, along with Tanya Hughes and her son Cameron Wright, who is from North Minneapolis but lives in California, who's coming back in order to make sure that he can be a part of it. You also have Hollywood Studio Dance, which is in North Minneapolis, or Les Gillette Petite, which is in North Minneapolis. Those are dance groups. They're also going to make a valuable contribution, along with Darnell Davis and the Remnant. And you know what? Nachito Herrera.
Amazing.
The great Nachito
my
Herrera.
Cuban brother. Yeah.
Our Cuban brother, who is phenomenal, who just came back from Cuba. He just did something with the orchestra in Cuba. He's joining us along with Daniel Felton and Darnell Davis and the Remnant. Also, the Hearst Family Experience. You hear them individually, but when you hear them together, it is. Listen, it is musical, right? It is heavenly. So those are just Mariah Miller, right? From St. Paul. She is from the lineage of the Reverend Earl Miller and Reverend Melvin Miller in St. Paul from Progressive. Those are just some of the people who are coming together, and we're all doing holiday music and your holiday favorites. You will not be disappointed.
Shirley Graham, amazing.
Oh, let me tell you, we have a lineup. We call it the old school medley, and not because of anything else. It's bringing the first ladies together. It's Shirley Marie Graham, along with Bernice Gregory, along with First Lady Tisa Johnson, and guess who else? First Lady and Pastor Betty Howell from Shiloh Temple. Those are just some of the people.
Yeah, amazing. That hasn't been done that I know of like this before.
No, we've done it this way, and we've been doing it this way for a little bit, and we always have a little twist. Like you're going to also see something else musical, because we're going to have some strings a part of it as well, right? So you're going to get a chance to see, and I can't tell you what songs they're singing. And I did forget to mention Alyssa Switzer, who's from Redeemer Church, which is in South Minneapolis, North Minneapolis on Glenwood, but she's trained from Berkeley School of Music.
Okay.
You're going to get a chance to hear her along with Monique Blakely. You know, great people that come together, and you're going to love it. And it sounds like a long list, Al, but it's so choreographed that it's going to be done in 1 hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've seen you do shows before, and nobody does it better than you. You organize and you deliver, and things happen when they're supposed to happen, the way they're supposed to happen, and they always exceed expectations. So that's what I'm expecting is going to happen. That's the magic of it, though. That's the magic of the season, but it's also the magic of the creative genius from which you are bringing this celebration, this time of being together for our people. I love, Senator Champion, that you have continued to say so-and-so from North Minneapolis, so-and-so from North Minneapolis, so-and-so from North Minneapolis. And what you're doing is exposing the true narrative, the appropriate narrative of who we are and of what we produce. What we're producing is world class. And we've been doing that all the time. But even despite the fact that this community is producing such great people like Bobby Joe Champion, like Attorney General Keith Ellison, the narrative in the media from outside is a narrative that is driven by and that reinforces fear and lack. And not that fear and lack don't exist, but that's not the predominant theme of the life in our people. And the life in our people really reflects a resilience and a hopefulness and a confidence that change is coming, and that we are optimistic as a people, and we know we're going to win. And what you're doing now as a leader in the Senate is reflecting the trend, the arc, the movement towards leadership by service and by truth. That's what I think. What do you think?
You know, and it's also, I also remind people that, you know, we bring whoever we are to any space that we go to, right? And before I was in the Senate, before I was in politics, by the way, I'm one of the main people who said I would never, ever run for office, right? So I'm often reminded of that by Attorney General Keith Ellison, who was the
Yeah.
first one to say to me, like, hey, you should be running for office, when we were trying to get him elected to be state representative. But we bring whoever we are to the place or space where we are. And I started Excelsior, a co-founder of Excelsior, along with an older guy by the name of Carlton Wright at the time, when I was 13, right? And so music has always been a part of who I am. And Excelsior is a Grammy-nominated Stellar Award-winning choir with 7, 8 albums in the marketplace. And so I've always had a love and understood the importance of music, and growing up in North Minneapolis. So I want to give a shout out to North Minneapolis, because guess what? Even when we're at the Way, Opportunities Unlimited, where they had Flight Time, the band in there, when you had Grand Central Station, when you had Prince there, when you had Andre Simone there, you had Bobby Lyle there, you had Sonny Thompson there, all individuals, Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam, right?
Yep.
All people who ended up being what? Pillars in the music industry, and Minnesota making an important dent in music as we know it. And that still continues today, whether you're talking about Lizzo, whether you're talking about Next, whether you're talking about Stokely and Mint Condition, whether you're talking about Darnell Davis and The Remnant, you name it, whether it's gospel, jazz, we are there, right? And so this is a consistent with our history. And here's the other thing that's consistent. We used to have the Northside Summer Fun Festival, and Youth Appreciation Day, that was also known as Freedom Day, which is also became what folks knew as Juneteenth. And we had music all the time and bringing community together, no matter where you were. So Spike Moss always had that as a pillar. So no matter where you live, you could come and we would embrace you, because that is what community is all about. So I'm just continuing in my own little way what has always been deeply embedded in me. And I just happen now to be in office, but this is what I went to school for too. I always wanted to be an entertainment attorney, so that's how I ended up working with Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam, and bringing community together. Because what we need is love, hope, inspiration, connection, seeing bright lights so other people can ignite their fire and become everything that they need to be. So we are pushing and always pushing against that narrative of North Minneapolis being the negative thing. But I also try to remind people that North Minneapolis is a great place to live, work, and play, as is other places.
Well, you mentioned the Way and the legacy, the history of the Way. Let me throw something out. It's a little bit of a pivot, but I was talking to somebody, and they were talking about the idea circulating that the 4th Precinct should possibly be moved somewhere else in North Minneapolis. 4th Precinct built on the land where the Way stood and operated for years, and that building should be returned or turned over to the community as the next iteration of the Way. Are you hearing that? Is there any thought about that circulating in ways or places that could possibly take traction or get traction? What do you think?
I haven't heard about the 4th Precinct being turned over, and you're right. The Way, Opportunities Unlimited, is actually the new Way, Opportunities Unlimited, but we just called it the Way. It was at that particular place of space before it moved to where the City Inc. Is, where it's now Olu's home, right? I think what I'm hearing more is we need to bring back that sort of spirit of engagement and involvement from our community jewels that made the Way possible, right? And everything it was connected to possible. I remember at the Way, they had a Black History fashion show where we had to learn about grooming and wearing the right thing for each appropriate occasions. That made certain that we understood that first impression is lasting impression. Where can we go find that now, where young people now, it seems, don't necessarily take some of those clues, right? You can go to a funeral and some people wearing jeans and a T-shirt, where before we never go to a funeral with jeans and a T-shirt. There are times when we would wear jeans and a T-shirt, and this is no criticism of us, but it's a criticism of are we making sure that we're handing down those important things like African American history. Before there was ethnic studies and everyone else saying those things, we were getting that at the way. So I'm hearing a lot of, what about us making sure that there is an environment created with the likes and the drive of the way, and the likes and drives of people who I met at the way. You know, I met Mahmoud El-Kati at the way.
Yep, yep.
And I met Mahmoud El-Kati at the way, and that is what motivated me to go to McAllister College when I couldn't go to Morehouse, which is where I wanted to go, because my parents reminded me that I didn't have enough money to cross the street, so how was I going to go to Atlanta?
Yeah.
Right? And so I had to go to the next best thing, right? And so I knew Mahmoud was over at McAllister, and that motivated me to go to McAllister because that was a familiar place and with a trusted adult that I have great respect for even to this very day. So all those things that the way was about, you know, the spirit of community and making sure we had a place or space and we were proud to be who we are. I'm hearing more that we need something like that, whether that's at the site where the 4th Precinct is now or some other place.
Okay, well, you know, I heard that from an interview I was doing with, I think, 2nd or 3rd Ward alderman from North Minneapolis, who said he thought it was a good idea.
It's not a bad idea.
I hope it just keeps percolating until we decide, you know, come up with a way and a strategy to, as you say, recapture, reignite, and reassemble that spirit of community that epitomized the work and the production of the way, and how it served as a light to guide youth and creativity and to involve elders and legacy in a way that was seamless, organic, and natural and positive for our people. So, yeah, I hope.
And let me say this.
Go ahead.
And let me say this, Al. I think you're absolutely right. And I don't want to forget, even as I'm talking about great artists and other musicians that have come through our communities, I don't want to forget ipso facto.
There we go. Here we go. Yeah.
I don't want to forget Wayne McFarlane, where we would understand the importance of our roots there, right? You know, or others. You know, again, if I didn't name someone, it is not because I don't respect it. Sometimes there's just so many names, and there's so much that we sometimes will forget them in the moment, but they're not forgotten when we think in terms of our heart and history.
That's right. Well, thank you for mentioning Wayne and the pioneering work he did in reggae music.
Yes.
He called it Jamaican American, you know, and he was part of a group of African, Caribbean, and Afro-Latino musicians that also made an impact in this market. This has been a fertile ground, and I think it's important that we're having this conversation, Bobby Joe Champion, because we have to spend time celebrating our victories. And every artist you mentioned, in and of himself, herself, is a victory, because that artist is the container, the vessel of the gift of creativity and the gift of legacy that moves us forward generation after generation after generation. And because they exist, right, we have an assurance that victory is both imminent and I think inevitable. We have to just keep showing up and keep doing what we do, being our authentic selves.
Well, the world is run by people who show up, right? You know, and the one thing that we have always been taught historically is to show up.
That's right.
And when we show up, listen, and also make certain if you have something to say, because something is being missed from the conversation, that you have the courage and the insight to raise the issue, right? And so, to me, that is so much a part of it too. And I was reading a quote by Angela Davis, and I may screw it up, but in her quote she says, "I want to have not only the courage, I don't want to just accept the things I cannot change. I want to change the things I cannot accept." Right? You know what I'm saying?
That's a twist.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah.
You know, reading that and understanding and putting in context who Angela Davis is and understanding her history, or understanding
that verse was the themed Serenity Prayer. Grant me the grace to change the things I can, accept those that I can't. She switched it around, right?
Absolutely.
Here we go.
And she says, you know, I want to change the things I cannot accept, right? You know, and so, but that's motivation, right? And so, Al, one of the things that is key, and in every bit of humility I say this,
Mm-hmm.
Being president of the Senate wasn't an egomaniacal idea on my part.
Mm-hmm.
I only do things when I feel called to do it because it is the perfect evolution for us as a people and for young people.
Mm-hmm.
What I understood is that I had the skills and qualifications and that
Mm-hmm.
I had the insight and the abilities. But I also felt it was important so that when people look at the Senate or they look at the proceedings, that they would also see someone who looked like other people that they sometimes deny opportunities to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just an example that anything's possible. So when we say to our young people, oh, dream, many things are possible, I don't want to just say that. I want them to have to ask me the question, have we ever had a black president before? No.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know what I'm saying? And it's the most photographed time because that's where the center of attention is, because you have to manage the floor. And I've always wanted to make them proud, but I also wanted them to see their possibility. And I wanted the majority community to see the possibility of what we can be if we're given the opportunities as well. If there's and if they work alongside of us, all of our boats can rise.
Mm-hmm.
We can all do better when we all do better.
I
And
can
so,
tell you, I can tell you, it was such a pleasure for me as the editor of Insight News to feature you on the cover with the title on the front page, President Bobby Joe Champion. So I'm on lift this up because it deserves to be lifted up. And we need to have that language in our minds, in our eyes, in our ears. And so we normalize the idea of Bobby Joe Champion, president. And if Bobby Joe, who I see around the corner, up the street, at the grocery store, at the restaurant, at the gas station, this is a guy that I know, a 12-year-old might say, or a 13-year-old girl might say. I see him all the time, and he's just like me. And he is now the president of the Minnesota Senate. That means I can be the president as well. And that's the beauty of it, man.
Man, that's the beauty of it to me, right, is for us to create the momentum for young people and others to say it's possible, right?
That's right.
And it reminds me of this saying where it says, why would I shoot for the stars when I can see footprints on the moon? Right? You know, you got to be able to see the footprints on the moon in order to say, wait a minute, I don't have to just shoot for the stars. I want to shoot for the moon.
Yep, do that. Yes, sir.
And if I fall short, I will still fall amongst the stars.
There we go. There we go. So,
you know what I'm saying? It's about us. And so I recognize that I'm here to serve, that I'm not here for anything other than to do my very best and make my contribution, because there are other shoulders that I'm standing on. That when I think about, you know, my parents who migrated from the South, where they lived in, where my mom is from Hooks, Texas, and my dad's from Hope, Arkansas. It reminds me of every year we would travel south for homecoming, and where we had to, you know, see what our Aunt Honey was doing and all the others, and just understanding the importance of education even for them and how they were not given an opportunity to get it.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And how I'm that hope, and we're that hope, and we're that possibility, and we're a byproduct of their work and their sacrifice.
You are the dream. What they dreamed of has materialized in your life and in your work. And that's true.
Absolutely.
And we have to be conscious of that broadly in our community. Our story of survival and resilience as a people is a testament to that experience.
And that we can go anywhere. You
That's
know,
right.
I want it to be normalized for them to say, oh, I'm going to the orchestra.
Yep.
Oh, there's black violinists, there's cellos, because you know the very first instrument I learned to play was a violin.
Uh-huh. I didn't know you.
But,
I was going to ask you, what do you play? Because I've never seen you play, and I haven't heard you sing. But I know you are a phenomenal choir director, because you put on a show directing the choir.
Listen, it is so funny because I first started learning how to play the violin, and then I didn't think it was cool enough, right? Then I went to the cello, and then I didn't think it was cool enough, right? And then I started playing guitar, and I didn't think that was cool enough. I don't know what I was thinking about, but I landed on being a pianist, right? And so I play piano, right?
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes. So So I play piano, and Al, I sing so low where you can't hear me. You don't need to hear me sing, right? Just as long as those who are much better at it would do it. That's why it also made sense to me, because musically, one of the reasons why I wanted to be an entertainment attorney is because I understood that our people didn't always understand music business.
Yeah.
And that they would be making all these historic contributions to the fabric of music,
and
guess what? And never ever getting paid. And it did not take for the Harvard study to confirm for me that there's a nexus between academics and art. Right? So that's why I support the legacy and arts and all the other things, because I understand that if you are operating, on that level, understanding music and rhythms and all the other things, that it sparks your academic side of you as well.
That's right. That's right. Music is math.
Music is math, and guess what? It is also a part of I call our oral tradition that we would hand down, whether you think about spirituals or whatever that you want to talk about, call and response, or where you talk about any of those other things. You know, the history of music and how we had to use it in a way to have a dual meaning, both for our current circumstances and what we need to do in order to get through it. So music can also inspire us and encourage us, even in the midst of not understanding everything that we see. So music for the holidays is not about my political career, because that's why I don't always talk about it as being senator. I just talk about it as being Bobby Joe as a founder, because I was doing it even before I got elected, because I don't want people to get confused and think it's an opportunity I'm using for some political purpose, because it's not. It's really about community.
And that's
it's about us.
You've been doing, and you've been doing it.
Yes.
But let's take a second and look at the promotional video. We've got that pulled up and ready to go, and we'll come back and continue this conversation. I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane. Bobby Joe Champion here. He's the co-founder of the Excelsior chorus. Is it choir or chorus?
We used to be Excelsior Choral Ensemble, then we just shortened it to just say Excelsior.
Excelsior.
Right?
And he's also creator, founder of Music for the Holidays. Here's what that's about.
Don't miss the annual Music for the Holidays concert, founded by Bobby Joe Champion. It's a totally free, soul-stirring night of music, food, fellowship, and togetherness. Thursday, December 21st, dinner at the Hilton and concert at Orchestra Hall, starring none above Wynn Starks, Sarah Renner, Tanya Hughes Kendrick, Nachito Herrera, Darnell Davis and the Remnant, and so many more. For your free ticket information, log on to musicfortheholidays.com.
Oh, that's a cool promo. That's excellent. Wonderful. And we're glad to be supporters, Bobby Joe.
Absolutely.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to help lift up and celebrate. I was mentioning before you came on that I think last year the program was canceled because we had a monumental weather event.
Yes.
I remember that's what it was set to go, and then all of the
snowstorm. They closed down everything, and we had to make the decision at the last minute whether we were going to continue and try to weather, for lack of a better word, weather the storm, or whether we were going to cancel it because we want to make sure that people were safe. And so we canceled it, but you still pay money in order to, do it. So
get it happen. And then in the previous year or two, how did COVID impact the celebration?
What happened is that we had to go to a virtual notion, right? And so we had it aired on TPT. We pre-recorded it with some people. I know one year we took footage from the previous year and sliced it up with a host and so on and so forth. And then last year we did a new recording, but we had to do it again virtually, and then aired again, as I mentioned, on TPT.
So, this is great that now here it's all coming together for the marvelous dinner event, 5:30 at the Hilton, and also the program, an hour and a half at Orchestra Hall in downtown Minneapolis. And people simply need to be prepared to go online to request tickets. It's free.
That's correct.
First come, first, right? And so we want people to know that they should get their request queued up so that they can get their request in at that time. Well, let me pivot back to your political career, and particularly, you mentioned that you were with the uh, uh,
National Black Caucus of State
yeah.
Legislators. Yes.
Talk about that. Tell me about that organization and your experience with it. And you mentioned that you were able to network with one of the other leaders of a state senate out of New York. I'm interested in how that interaction occurred and what can happen in terms of collab, sharing your information in the future.
Well, so the National Black Caucus of State Legislators is an organization that's been around for a long time, right? And its mission is to bring together black legislators from across the country so that we can talk about policy and issues of concern for black Americans, and come up with strategies as to advancing those issues, whether it's in your own state or you're using someone else's success as a way to help encourage you or give you insight as to what you can do in your own state, right? And so they have both two conferences. They have their annual conference, which is in some state or some place. This year was in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's still going on now. That is usually the last week of November into the first week of December. And then they have a mid-year someplace in June, which is smaller than this larger event that they do. Mm-hmm. Well, the great thing about it is that you get a chance to interact with people from across the country, right? Mm-hmm. And they can tell you about what they're doing, whether it's around housing or health-related issues or artificial intelligence, whatever it is, right? And you wrestle with these policy issues. And they also do some work with what they call you would see it written as noble women, but they pronounce it Nobel women, mm-hmm. right? And so that's also black women from all across the country as well, right? And so it's how do you elevate and lift up black women as well and those who are in elected positions, but also how do you help make sure that we're supporting the Black Congressional Caucus, because we sometimes have some of them that comes in, but you also interact with corporate leaders as well. So the interaction that I talked to you about just earlier about was a person from New York, last name Hesty, who's the Speaker of the House in New York. Mm-hmm. I told him I knew the Senate President for New York because she and I were on Senate President's trips, and she and I connected and had a chance to talk about a cross-section of things, from policies to fundraising to whatever it is, right? And I told him that I knew her. And he says, you know what? I believe that you and Andrea Stewart are the only cousins, and that you guys are the only two black presidents in the United States. Mm-hmm. Senate presidents. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she didn't get a chance to come to this one because she was doing something else. And now I'm having that research.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. We lost the feed. You'll probably have to reboot and come back in a second. I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane, having a great conversation with my friend and my representative, State Senator Bobby Joe Champion, and talking about a variety of things. We primarily were here to promote the Music for the Holidays event, something he's been doing for a number of years, and it's coming back to a full force presentation coming up in December. We want to make sure that you know about it. Put the slide up again, Cooper, with the details of it until we get Senator back. So it's Thursday, December 21st at Orchestra Hall. And let me tell you that doing an event at Orchestra Hall is no little feat. It's a massive feat to make it happen. But Bobby Joe Champion, experienced as he is in producing and directing for community and in art and in culture, as the leader, co-founder of Excelsior, a celebrated Grammy-nominated, Stellar Award-winning musical ensemble based here in Minnesota. He's been at this for a minute and produces programs that are flawless, impactful, inspiring, that motivates you to keep on being your best self. Well, in that spirit, Music for the Holidays takes place Thursday, December 21st at Orchestra Hall. And it's going to be an event that includes, before the actual music performance, a free community dinner. I heard him say they're going to be having dinner for 1,000 people at the Hilton Hotel, which is straight across the street from Orchestra Hall. So I think tickets will be available. It's free, but you have to have a ticket starting November 30th. And we'll put up, well, you get a ticket by going to musicfortheholidays.com. So put that down, bookmark it, get ready to, on the 29th at 11 o'clock, 11:30, when 12 rolls around, November 30th, then you should put your order in to make sure that you are able to be one of the 1,000 who are able to have the community dinner at the Hilton and also go to the performance at the Orchestra Hall on that night. The dinner is going to be from 5:30 to 7 p.m., the show from 7:30 to 9 p.m., and it's a big show. It's a star-studded show, and as Senator Champion was saying, it elevates and celebrates this wellspring of talent, of knowledge, of genius that really is the true character of our community, North Minneapolis in particular. But I think North Minneapolis people, we all see ourselves as part of a larger complex of connectedness in the Twin Cities. And so the things that we enjoy and are proud of here, we know exist in South Minneapolis and exist over in the Summit University, Rondell neighborhood in St. Paul. We know these things are also existing in Brooklyn Center and Brooklyn Park and St. Louis Park. All of the surrounding communities all have a sense of ownership of this creativity that this program is going to reflect. So we're going to see if we can get Senator Champion back on. We lost the feed for a second. He was joining us from his car, just got in, and he was at the airport coming in from a National Association of Black State Legislators that he attended in Nashville, Tennessee. So we're so glad that he was able to jump in and be with us for this program. And we were talking about other events that he's been working on. We'll come back in a second. We've got in a minute a sponsor credit we want to run. As soon as our production team has it, we'll do that and then come back. And hopefully Senator Champion will be back on board as well. We'll see what happens. So Cooper, if you want to do the promo, we can take our break and we'll come back in a minute. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. We'll be right back. Are you or someone you know recovering financially from the COVID-19 pandemic, the lockdown, or any other reason? If so, help is available. Findhelp.org is a site to find a wide range of resources, including food, medical care, and more. The best part is based on your zip code. Visit findhelp.org, enter your zip code and the service you need. You'll get a map directing you to the organizations that can help you. Help is waiting at findhelp.org. If you need help starting anew, findhelp.org is the site for you. I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome back to The Conversation with Al McFarlane, talking with Minnesota State Senator, actually President of the Minnesota State Senate, Bobby Joe Champion, a Northsider, and he's actually mobile, connecting with us from his car. Just got back in town from an event in Nashville, Tennessee, where he received an award for his service and leadership as a president, as a leader in Minnesota. And Bobby Joe, if you're there, if we can bring you back in, we'll try to get you.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm here. Yes.
We have the audio. If you bring the video, great. But if not, the audio works as well.
Let me try this.
There
again.
we go.
Okay.
There we go. Gotcha. So I was going to say, let's talk about the wins that you stewarded in the last legislative system. You guys did transformational investments in our community. What does that mean? And I know you're not trying to take, you shy away from taking credit. I'm saying that as a reporter, journalist, I want you to throw down what God delivered. Don't let people think that you have to be eating humble pie, because you worked hard and you delivered, right? And so I want you to be able to say, here's what I did.
Again, thank you for saying it that way, Al, because it is true that it takes all of us in order to make these things work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just some of the things that we delivered, like for an example, not only just president, but I'm also chair of Jobs and Economic Development. And that doesn't usually happen, that a president is also chair, of a major budget area.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to deliver through my committee, investments across our state. In North Minneapolis and South Minneapolis, for an example, businesses in St. Paul, right, in our African or other communities where there are language issues. How do we make sure that there's true economic liberation, and or at least be on the pathway to it? That bill that I championed, we spent roughly $968 million, both here and just around across our state. And one of the things I try to remind people of, people think about North Minneapolis, South Minneapolis, and St. Paul as the urban corridors. But if you go to Cass County, or you go to Stearns County, or you go to Rice County, you'll see people that look like me and you there too, right? And so there's investments that we made in those communities around, daycare as well, because guess what? Child care is a big issue across our state, right? And then, of course, people living with disabilities. How do we empower them in order to be able to work and make a livable wage, right? And help them, fulfill their dreams. And so one thing that's different about the money that we did this year, too, even in the Promise Act, there's a pot of money specifically for North Minneapolis, specifically for South Minneapolis, specifically for St. Paul, specifically for our out-state folks or our rural communities and suburbia. And everything that we did in that bill was about making sure investments happened all across the great state of Minnesota, and includes our neighborhoods as well, right? Because traditionally they help everyone else, but they wouldn't help us, right? They wouldn't make those investments for us. So that's historic. And I mentioned some of the other things earlier, when I think in terms of making sure that there was substantial investments in education. Higher ed, for an example, was a big thing I pushed earlier, and then I was not happy with some other things. But higher ed, so that individuals could go to college in the state of Minnesota if they're a Minnesota college student, a high school student, and they want to go to college in Minnesota, where they can go for free. If they meet the income eligibility, and it's not just for those who are super poor, it's also for middle class families too. Because we've been seeing a decline in 18 to 24-year-olds going to college, and if they did go to college, they were going out of state. And they believe that if you go to college out of state, your chances of returning to Minnesota diminish, right? And so how can we keep them here so they're not just going to North Dakota State or South Dakota State or Wisconsin or Atlanta? What can we do to keep them here and invest in those students and be very intentional about that, right? So higher ed, more money in education. We also made great investments around mental health issues and initiatives, whether that's Wellspring or others. We understand that mental health is an issue that we have to deal with in real time, whether it's young people, whether it's adults. We need to remove the stigma around people getting support of counseling and therapy and those things, right? I also made, big investments around bonding. So we got B3 who have also committed their own revenue as well, but we joined as a partner on the state level in order to make sure that they can bring an instructional pool to Minneapolis, North Minneapolis,
Mm-hmm.
also business incubation, but also an Olympic-style pool too,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a full concept that Erica Binger and others have been working very hard on that I think is important. So whether we have money in bonding for Neon,
Mm-hmm.
V3, you
Meta.
know, META, NDC, you know, that list goes on, and it's full, and it's robust, and it's comprehensive, right?
So
And then,
how do the targeted recipients of these resources become aware and utilize and engage the resources? What's the strategy for that?
well, you know, this is one that we're doing right now. I'm out talking about it. We've been on
Mm-hmm.
Camel J talking about it. We've been asking different community organizations to reach out to people in their reach to tell them about it, and be very intentional about the message, right? You know, and so that no one gets left behind. And so there's a ramp that leads up to the grants, because they're grants and some loans, but the majority of it is grants. And people are
Mm-hmm.
like, well, why didn't you do more money around just development alone? Well, because a vast majority of our businesses are small businesses, like really small businesses. How do we
Mm-hmm.
help move them from being a small business to a medium-sized business? How do we
Right.
stabilize them, right? And so, and then I also said, well, why not let the city and others do the other part that we're not doing, right? So we don't
Yeah.
have to have, we don't have to be the answer for everything. We
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure that we are making it a valid and real contribution. Hey, one of the other things I'm proud of is that we have an office for missing and murdered black girls and women,
Mm.
so that they become a priority when we think in terms of their lives. Because guess what? We often are told through actions that their lives don't matter.
Mm-hmm. Great.
We need to make sure that there's a clearinghouse and there's intentionality around respecting
And
and honoring these
prioritize.
lives. That's
Prioritize.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that is something that I was also the chief author of. And then, of course, continue to move the stuff for the African American Family Preservation Act, whether it's, I mean, that is a huge issue even when we're dealing with child protection. I am continue to push around child protection because there's these family separations. But let me
Mm-hmm.
tell you this. The Crown Act, right? You know, you
Mm-hmm.
may look at me, and if you can see me, that I may not have hair on my head, but I want to make sure that people are entering the workforce and are not discriminated against if they want to wear their natural hair. How do we
Right.
respect that? You
Right.
know,
Right.
restore the vote. I've been the chief author of that and got that across the finish line with Senator Zainab Muhammad, right? It's something I've done up to that point, but she talked about she wanted to, you know, do it too, and she was a great partner in order to work with, so she could also learn from me and I could learn from her. But at the end of the day, we wanted to get this policy across the finish line, and we did.
55,000 new voters eligible.
Yeah, so for restore the vote, and she
Yeah.
helped with driver's license for all. But you're right, 55,000 new voters, so people can vote if they're not incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
They're paying taxes, they're
Mm-hmm.
raising children, they're doing all these things. So we want to make sure that we are respectful of that. So restore the vote, I was the chief author of, and Senator Muhammad helped with the driver's license for all, because that's something that was important. Housing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to make sure that there was more money available for people for housing. And specifically in North Minneapolis, I helped put forth money for 9,000 equities with Bill Wealth, Minnesota, and David.
Yep. Yep.
Emerging developers,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as well, because you have a lot of development that happens in our communities, but it's
Mm-hmm.
usually done by people who don't live in our communities.
That's right. That's
How
right.
do we develop that bench so that capacity is intentionally a part of our fabric, right? So I can go on. There's so much more that I know that I'm missing, but it is important for us to gravitate to, celebrate, and just make sure that we are doing everything that we can in order to make sure that people are get it. Paid family and medical leave.
Mm-hmm.
Lead lines. I mean, there's a lot of money that we deliver there in order to make sure that we get lead out of these pipes, because guess what? It hurts our youngest constituents more than anyone else, right?
We're
It
we're
helps
out
us all.
we're out of time right now, Senator Champion. Listen, what a wonderful conversation. But let's come back and follow up, because I only touched the surface of the questions I want to get with you. We'll come back, okay?
And I'll make sure that I'm on my computer and not trying to hightail it from the airport to try to talk to you. So accept my apologies for that, but it's only because you're important to me and I want to be here.
This makes it like Cinema Real. This makes it even more exciting. So it's successful, and thank you so much. I'm Al
Thank you
McFarlane.
again.
This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane. Thanks to Senator Bobby Joe Champion. And make sure you're ready to push the button to apply for your tickets for Music for the Holidays. We'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye-bye.